Welcome everyone to the Lord of Mysteries novel summary series on AniMonolith. In the previous part, Klein and Leonard work together to rescue Elliot, the kidnapped son of a tobacco merchant. Leonard uses his supernatural powers, including reciting a mystical poem to put the kidnappers to sleep. Afterward, Leonard advises Klein to leave before the client arrives to avoid complications with the reward payment. After the completed mission with Leonard, Klein returned to the Zutland neighborhood alone and then strolled to Welch's house. After walking on many different routes, Klein returned home with ingredients for the evening. That evening all three Moretti brothers spent a hot and fun evening together. Then when night came, all three returned to their rooms to sleep. While sleeping, Klein suddenly heard a strange sound. At the same time, he also felt that there was something extremely unusual but also very familiar, like déjà vu. So Klein immediately went to the bedroom that no one was using anymore, and then he saw a gray table. On the table is a notebook with a cover made of hard paper, stained black. As if prompted by something, Klein opened the notebook and a page appeared before his eyes with a drawing of the fool wearing beautiful clothes and bright jewelry. Below the fool has a line written in Hermes, "Everyone dies, including myself." When Klein looked at the fool, he suddenly discovered that the picture was smiling at him. This caused Klein to be extremely frightened. He quickly woke up and discovered that it was all just a nightmare. However, as a seer, Klein understands that dreams always reflect something. So Klein immediately tried to recall today's events to find the corresponding answer to his recent dream. But all that remained in Klein's mind was the time he was immersed in Leonard's poem. Then he realized that during that process, he had experienced the feeling of being stared at by an unknown mysterious force. That feeling of being looked at was similar to the feeling when Klein used cogitation or spirit vision. Based on Captain Dunn's words, once a similar feeling appeared, it was likely that Klein's body and memory were reacting to the Antigonos family's notebook. Thinking of this, Klein immediately sat up from the bed. At the same time, he also tried to imagine when that feeling appeared, and then Klein came to an unbelievable conclusion. That's the Antigonos family's manuscript in the room opposite the kidnapper's room. With extremely excited emotions, Klein quickly changed from his sleeping clothes to work clothes. He also did not forget to bring his pistol and carefully hid it in the gun holster near his armpit. Klein then put on his hat and tiptoed out of the apartment so as not to wake his brother and sister. While passing through the security room, Klein wrote a message that he suddenly remembered there was still unfinished business at the company, so he needed to go there to complete the task. Klein then walked on a deserted street. He glanced at his watch and discovered that it was almost 6 o'clock in the morning. The sky was no longer dark but the bright red moon was still shining. Then Klein suddenly saw an irregular carriage running towards him. Although he was surprised that there were still cars running on the street at this hour, Klein quickly seized the opportunity. He called a carriage and after agreeing on a price with the driver, he immediately asked to go to Zutland. While traveling, Klein chatted with the driver and learned that his job was not easy as he had to work hard every day of the week, with only one day of rest. According to the toll collector currently in the carriage, since the driver was too tired and caused an accident, unable to control the horse, causing the carriage to overturn, there has been a shift according to a fixed time as follows. From 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock in the afternoon, then have lunch, take a nap, wait until after dinner, then change colleagues at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Then Klein arrived at 36, Zutland Street, the address of the Blackthorn Security Company. When he opened the door and walked in, Klein saw Leonard leisurely smoking a cigar. Seeing the other person, Klein immediately asked where the captain was. Leonard replied, "Dunn is currently in the office." Dunn Smith doesn't need to sleep, just resting a little during the day is enough, because he is a beyonder promoted from sleepless. Klein then greeted Leonard and went to find Dunn. Seeing Klein, Dunn remained calm as usual and asked him why he came to look for him so early in the morning. Klein tried to arrange his words as smoothly as possible. He replied, "I feel like I've seen him somewhere before, I guess it must be that notebook, his family's notebook." Antigonos tribe. Dunn then asked about the notebook's location, and Klein replied, "Right where Leonard and I rescued the hostages yesterday, across from the kidnapper's room. I didn't realize it at the time, it wasn't until I was dreaming that it was suggested to me." Just at this moment, Leonard suddenly walked in and expressed regret because he missed the opportunity to score yesterday. Then Dunn immediately ordered Leonard to go to Kenley as a sleepless and told him to guard the armory for old NEI. and old Neil as a mystery prior and Fry as a corpse collector will go to the crime scene together. Then in just a few minutes, the Nighthawks unit quickly boarded the carriage to go to the apartment that the kidnappers used to detain Elliot yesterday. Inside the car, Klein did not forget to observe Fry, a staff in Blackthorn whom he first saw. Fry has white skin as if he hasn't been exposed to the sun for a long time or is seriously anemic. He was about 30 years old, with black hair and blue eyes, a high and straight nose, quite thin lips, and a cold and gloomy aura with a faint scent due to years of contact with corpses. At this moment, Captain Dunn suddenly asked Klein to recount the details from the beginning to the end of the job entrusted to him by Butler Klee. After Klein finished narrating, old Neil exclaimed that Klein was indeed destined to have the Antigonos family's memoir. Of course, Klein himself also felt that everything was too coincidental. Since receiving the mandate to find Elliot, Klein had been informed by Leonard of the investigation information about this case, which was that there was no arrangement by any dark organization or mysterious force at all. Although he still had many doubts, Klein still did not show an overly agitated attitude, which coincidentally matched the rather quiet atmosphere in the carriage. Then when he arrived, Dunn arranged for old Neil and Klein to go last. Besides, he also took a strange pistol with a barrel that seemed a bit long and a bit rough from his chest and stuffed it in his right shirt pocket. Then the 5 Beyonders, in formation, quickly went up the stairs very quietly to the 3rd floor. When he reached the room opposite the room used by the kidnappers, Klein tapped twice on the glabella to turn into spirit vision. In this state, his premonition increased again. He felt like he recognized that door as if he had been inside. Then, old Neil immediately tapped the seal twice to open spirit vision and said that there was no one inside and no magic circle. Fry with a hoarse voice also added, "There are no evil spirits." He doesn't need to open spirit vision to still be able to see many spirits, including evil spirits and unjust souls. Then Leonard broke down the door the same way he did before. At that moment, a terrible stench suddenly spread out. Fry calmly said that it was the smell of a rotting body. Captain Dunn then opened the door wide to observe inside. And the 5 Beyonders saw a chair in front of the fireplace, an old woman in a black and white dress sitting on it, her head drooping. Her whole body became unusually much larger, her entire body's skin was dark blue, bulging, and glowing, as if with just one poke it would burst, emitting a foul smell. But maggots or parasitic animals crawled out from inside the meat and rotten fluid. Through spirit vision, Klein felt them like spots of light surrounding a beam of darkness that was about to go out. Faced with such a disgusting scene, Klein couldn't help but throw up. Luckily, Fry brought a small square iron kettle that looked quite similar to a cigarette box to appear in front of Klein. The pot without a lid emitted a mixed smell of poison water and mint leaves, similar to the smell of cigarettes, causing Klein's nose to no longer smell the rotten smell, thanks to which his body gradually felt better. Then Dunn Smith asked Klein if he felt familiar with this room. Hearing that, Klein immediately stabilized his mind, and with spirit vision still in use, he immediately had a completely different feeling. An image from the deepest part of his memory suddenly appeared before his eyes: furnace, heater on the wall, chair, table, newspaper, rust-stained iron nail on the door, silver-white plated tin can. That scene was as gloomy as a reportage film on Earth, but vague and unrealistic. At the same time, Klein also heard a strange scream as if coming from somewhere far away. Its content kept repeating the words Hornaces and Phlegria. When hearing these sounds, Klein suddenly remembered Hornaces Mountain, which appeared in the original Klein's diary. That is the content decoded by the original Klein from the Antigonos family's notebook. However, Klein did not dare to approach this information further, because he felt that the strange sounds just now seemed to tempt him. Klein was very afraid that he would fall into a state of losing control as Dunn had warned, so he stopped investigating. At this moment, Captain Dunn, after receiving confirmation from Klein that this place was familiar, investigated the scene. At the same time, Dunn assigned Leonard the task of finding local police to cooperate in the investigation. As for Fry, the corpse collector, he concluded that the victim has been dead for more than 5 days, with no external injuries, nor any visible effects caused by a superhuman strength. Regarding the specific cause, further investigation is required. Then it was Klein and old Neil's turn to report. They both turned off spirit vision, but before that, it was enough to carefully observe the scene. Old Neil said seriously, "Other than the victim, everything in this place is normal." However, at first, an invisible force sealed the room. Because when someone uses ritual magic, there are usually similar operations. At this moment, as if having a premonition, the four Beyonders all turned towards the door at the same time. Then the silhouette of Leonard and a police officer quickly appeared. After seeing the scene, this police officer immediately went to the apartments on the second and third floors to collect information. The police officer then returned to the room with the rotting body and concluded this is Mrs. Katie Stephanie Bieber, about 55 to 60 years old, a widow, who has rented this place with her son Ray Bieber for more than 10 years. When she was alive, her husband was a jewelry maker. Her son is about 30 years old, unmarried, inheriting his father's profession. Neighbors said they hadn't seen both mother and child for a week. Hearing this, Klein knew that the issue that needed special attention was that Ray Bieber was missing, or rather, he didn't know where he had gone, and the notebook might have been right on his person. It seemed that Dunn also had the same guess as Klein because he immediately asked the area police officer if there was a portrait of Ray Bieber. However, the police officer said he needed to go back to the department to search further. Then when he received approval from Dunn, who was in a higher military rank than him, of course, it was a position to cover the eyes of outsiders and the true identity of a Beyonder must be kept secret, the police officer left on duty.